Well, hello, and welcome back. We're going to be starting chapter 10. Are you guys excited? Does everybody have their beverage? Do you have your blankie and where you're going to curl up while you're listening? I want to thank everybody once again for listening and watching this video. I do want to remind you if you could please like and subscribe. Even share this video out if you think others that you know might be interested. So here we go, chapter 10. I stood completely still, heart hammering in my chest. It could have been a coincidence. Books did fall. Another book tipped over and hit the floor. My eyes widened. Okay, there was no denying that. Something or someone was tipping those books over. I waited, frozen to the spot, for something more to happen. My breath was so shallow, I started to feel lightheaded, but there was nothing to see or hear except for the tick of the clock and the scratching of branches against the window from the large oak tree out front, which, you know, was only slightly terrifying. After another moment passed, I rolled my shoulders, forcing my tension out. Ugh, this was ridiculous. Me of all people being afraid of ghosts. Thump! I yelped. I wasn't proud, but I couldn't help it. Ghosts are a lot scarier when you can't see them or hear them, and they're just creeping around all invisible like. So this was what haunting was like when you weren't a witch. I did not find it a pleasant at all. Would not recommend. 0 stars. Most ghosts were able to move objects, but given her force of will, I shouldn't have been surprised Constance Graves would be one of those to figure it out. Okay, I called out, a little embarrassed by the shakiness in my voice. I'm going to assume you're here, Constance. And again, I want you to know we're really sorry, and I'm going to do everything in my power to find out what happened to you. 3 more books tumbled over. Hey, I said, planting my hands on my hips. Take it easy. 5 more books at this time. You stop that right now. I walked over to the growing pile of abused books on the floor and reached down to pick one up. Some of these are really old. Just as my fingertips brushed the cover of an early edition of The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, I spotted something lit up by the street lamp outside. I gently picked it up. A petal. A petal wasn't so unusual. We had fresh cut flowers in all the rooms, but it was a rose petal. I twirled it in the faint light. A yellow rose petal. That was all wrong. Nora hated yellow roses. Like, really, really bizarrely loathed them. I asked her several times why she hated them. I knew there was a story, but she would always brush off the question with a glib answer like, "How do you not hate them?" That was Nora. But regardless of the reason, my aunt never would have brought yellow roses into the house. And, as far as I knew, Constance hadn't left the B&B when she had been staying with us, so she couldn't have brought it in. Is this what you wanted me to see? I stared at the silky petal in my hand, a big question swirling in my mind. If none of us bought a yellow flower in the house, who had? I managed to get out into town alone the next morning. I think my aunts were overwhelmed from the previous day's events and the worry of what today might bring. I knew I needed to tell them everything, but Nora was still locked in her room, and Izzy appeared to be sleeping in. That was a rare event, so I thought it best to leave her to it. I wanted to talk to Gideon, too, but I had fallen asleep in the Rosewater room, waiting around to see if Constance had any further message she wanted to convey. She hadn't, and by the time I woke up, it was morning. I knew Gideon would have gone to bed. He was mostly nocturnal. Either way, I set out feeling galvanized. Finding that rose petal had given me the boost I needed. Constance was still at the B&B. She hadn't gone into the light, and that could only mean one thing. She wasn't at peace. She wasn't she wanted something, and it didn't take much to figure out what that was. More than ever, I needed to find out what happened that night. Given the apple orchard was a good distance away, I opted to take my bike, and while I did find it easier heading into town the second time, I couldn't help but notice there were a lot more people taking notice of me. Word must have spread that the police had searched the B&B. And that wasn't the only thing I noticed. Most of the most of the citizens of Evanfall enjoyed decorating their homes for the season, and while it was still early for Halloween decorations, many pots of chrysanthemums and other fall flowers were just about everywhere this time of year. There were lots out today, too. The only problem was they were all sitting at the end of people's driveways, dead. I didn't know what to make of it. What kind of blight spread from potted plants to potted plants? The sight was a little unnerving, so I was thankful when it came time to turn down the dirt road that led to the apple orchard. The uneven surface forced me to slow down, but the autumn view was enough to keep my spirits up. The leaves to the tall maples on either side of the road had changed from green to gold, and every turn of my bike's wheel sent grasshoppers flying into the air, while late monarchs fluttered about. After a minute or two of pedaling, I spotted the orchard. My eyes trailed over to the my eyes trailed over the rows of apple trees lining and gently sloped hills. There was a red barn cheerfully nestled in the mist, and beyond that, a stone farmhouse with neat white fencing. I remembered what Roxy had said about Rip Jr. wanting Graves' house, but I had a difficult time reconciling the desire to live in that falling down manor over this beautiful upkept homestead. As I got closer to the orchard, I had to navigate my way around the many cars coming and going from the front drive. Apple picking season was apparently in full swing. I leaned my bike against the wood fence by the front gate and lifted up the wicker hamper I had wedged into the front basket. That's right. I had stolen Izzy's idea. I was still worried about talking to Constance's sibling. I was still worried that talking to Constance's siblings might prove difficult, so I decided to come bearing gifts. I followed the stream of people under the wood sign that read McGivern's Apples. Inside, small children dressed in fall sweaters toddled among ducks waddling just outside of arm's reach, while parents looked on and chatted with one another, holding cups of what smelled like apple cider. I also noticed a few people sneezing and pulling out handkerchiefs. Allergies, yet another joy of the season. Still, despite the circumstances and the itchy noses, I couldn't help but feel the warmth of the festivities. Give that back this instant, Jeremy. Clearly not everyone is feeling the love. I spotted a girl with long pigtails and a plaid jacket giving a fearsome look to an older boy waving a maple syrup lollipop in front of her. That's mine, she said, fist planted on her hip. If you don't give it back, you'll be sorry. What are you going to do? The boy taunted, throwing the lollipop in the air and catching it before the much shorter girl could snatch it away. I'm not going to do anything, she said confidently. The witches will get you. I stumbled. What are you talking about? He threw the lollipop in the air again. My mom says Evanfall is full of witches, and they'll get you if you're bad. That is so stupid. There are no witches in Evanfall. The boy threw the lollipop up again, but this time I caught it before it made its way back down. His eyes widened as they met mine. Now, I know you know it's not nice to take things that don't belong to you. The boy continued to stare at my wide-eyed at the boy continued to stare at me wide-eyed as I handed him back the piece of candy. So, if this isn't yours, I looked over to the girl whose mouth had dropped open. The boy nodded, swallowed hard, and passed the lollipop back to her. I gave them both a wink and headed on my way. Given everything going on, it probably wasn't the best time to interfere, but I hadn't been able to help myself. Besides, no one in town really believed there were witches, even if some mothers were telling their children that in order to even if some mothers were telling their children that in order to get them to behave. As far as most Evanfall citizens were concerned, the Warren women were just a little different and helpful. We always, for example, had good ideas of where to look for lost pets or misplaced items like keys or reading glasses. Izzy often had the right flavor of ice cream in the B&B's kitchen to help ease the pain of a teenager's broken heart. And Nora's natural face creams were famous for giving a bounce to people feeling down. And then there was me. I, of course, had been counted on to offer comforting words to the bereaved over a cup of tea. Still, though, now wasn't the time to be drawing attention to myself. After taking in the sights for a minute or two, I walked over to a teen in a green vest who was unloading vats covered in warning labels from the truck. My, those look heavy, I said with a smile. The boy wiped his brow with the back of his hand. I'll say, what can I do for you? Do you know where I could find Rip Graves? Sure, the teen answered. He pointed at the stone farmhouse. You can go right up. Just make sure you close the gate behind you. Thank you. I walked up to the picket fence. My hand froze as I reached for the latch. Yellow roses. There were yellow roses planted on either side of the gate. I ran my fingertip over the petals. Of course, I couldn't be certain, but they had appeared to be the exact shade of the petal I had found the night before. It wasn't conclusive proof of anything, but it was something. I let myself inside, making sure to click the gate shut behind me, then turned to face the house and the two large German shepherds racing towards me.